They would come around, they wanted to see this car and see a DeLorean actually growing in front of them.
Nobody knew if it was ever going to start or not, but the time we actually put the key in, it says maybe turn over for a wee bit, and then it'll start. As soon as I turned the key, bang, away it went. There's a cheer went up, That was the first car that was built in Northern Ireland and was driven around the test track. And I had the pleasure of taking the first time around the test track. Thought it was Jack a lad, really did. Everybody stand and watched, It was a big coup for us because there was literally nothing there, and all of a sudden you have this.
The next thing, a miracle. Something that we had created that actually worked. And a guy drove it out the door, and that was a car, which is completely unique.
I think probably the memorable day for a lot of people was the day the first transporters left. That, I think, for a lot of people, particularly the workforce, it gave them the impression, hey, this is going to work.
There was 379 cars left the factory in the first shipment, and everybody watched them leave the factory. They were transported down to the docks facility. They were driven onto the boat, and it's fair to say that most of the employees in the factory turned up that day to see the cars disappear. That was the first batch of cars that left the factory, and that was a day that none of us could actually see that ever happening, but it did happen.
It was an immense occasion to see these cars trundling down onto the dock and driving up into that cavernous ship. Amazing, yes, tremendous feeling.
On Easter Sunday 1981, the first shipment of cars left the factory bound for America, and DeLorean secured another £17 million loan from the government.
The DeLorean is one of the most awaited automobiles in automotive history. Drive the DeLorean. Live the dream today.
The first shipment of 379 DeLoreans is already here, not so much launched as landed on the American market. The port of entry was Long Beach, the best sales prospector in California, and here too, in a suburb of Los Angeles, is the car's first service center. There, the DeLoreans are lining up for their customers, the 10 or 12,000 buyers already known to be interested in a $25,000 car.
When the cars first came over, a lot of them were charging well over list price for the cars. The car was a classic. We need it and we want it, and so we're going to charge the punters over the odds for these cars. That's how much in demand they were when they first hit the market in America.
The number of people we could attract who said, "Can I leave a deposit for the car?" And we said, "No, we're not taking any more deposits." It got to such a point I said, "The only way we'll take a deposit is $5,000 cash, and don't bug me."
The customers were lining up in their droves, unaware of the problems that awaited them.
The first 400 cars were totally rebuilt by Dick Brown in the States. Stripped down, rebuilt. I forget how many hours it was per car, 400 hours, something like that, 500 hours. An enormous amount, bearing in mind that the production time was supposed to be 50 hours.
The first cars, they're dogs, really were dogs. They were through together with an inexperienced production line.
Rough. Needed a lot of retrofitting, yeah.
To be quite honest with you, there was a few people in it. Managers and directors were sort of like hoping that the first load of cars going onto the boat, that the boat sunk. So they could maybe claim the compensation and didn't have to sell the cars as such. I certainly wouldn't have bought one, And I loved them,
I was just getting everything to fit. That was the biggest problem. You were putting a skin on. There mightn't have been anywhere. There mightn't have been a hole for the bolt to go into. But that was all part of the design of it. The fun of it was like a mechano set. Bits didn't fit. We made them fit. All the cars we built, no two were identical. Each panel that you would have put on had to be slightly altered. We had boys that worked on the production line that did that. It just didn't fall into place. And that was probably the biggest problem we had.
They had to get to the market fast to earn money. We had a lot of problems, particularly with doors. Doors were a major problem.
They were rough. But then again, they were directly from Lotus Design anyway, so.
Even in the big industries, they run pilot production lines alongside introducing new models and to sort all the problems out before they get switched onto the main line. So I mean, it's certainly not unique to have problems, and we all know problems are still resident in vehicles even when they go into mass production.
I always thought, and I think it was common belief, that the car was not sufficiently well developed to go into mass production. It needed to be right.
The Lotus factory was over on the east coast of England. Somebody put a large sign up: the further to the east you go, the more you realise that's not where the wise men came from.
Despite the ongoing production gremlins, more and more cars were being shipped to the States. It seemed DeLorean's grand plan was coming to fruition. Suddenly, without warning, the DMC empire was rocked by allegations from an insider. A trusted aide, Marion Gibson, delivered a financial bombshell, alleging that DeLorean had misused taxpayers' money to fund a lavish lifestyle and had not put up the amount of personal cash that he had claimed. She brought his personal files across the Atlantic and gave them to one of DeLorean's most vociferous critics, MP Nicholas Winterton.
She is a British subject working for an American company, gravely concerned about what might be the impact of the actions of the DeLorean enterprises upon Britain, and particularly upon Ulster and the people of that troubled province at this time.
Every cent we spend is a subject of an audit. There's nothing. I've never locked my door. I've never locked a drawer. I've never locked a file. We have nothing to hide.
I was aware of her claims, and I was aware of Winterton's interest in it, which was quite important, but at the time we did our best to discount it. But I think he had a legitimate point.
I feel that deep down Margaret Thatcher was not at all comfortable, was, I would suggest, well aware that all was not well, but didn't want to get involved.
Margaret Thatcher was forced to get involved. She called a police inquiry, but the furore ended as quickly as it had begun. Only 8 days after the investigation was announced, DeLorean was cleared of all impropriety.
Do I think I was right to draw the concerns to the attention of government? I do believe to this day that I was entirely justified.
Cleared of financial wrongdoing, the way was now open for DeLorean to up the ante. He proposed floating the company on the stock exchange, but this time he would need more than spin to convince investors. The factory would have to double production to 100 cars a day. If this gamble worked, it would make DeLorean millions.
The headlines in the local paper was, "More jobs for DeLorean." Everybody was so excited. Instead of just the 2,000 that had been promised, John DeLorean was going to give us 2,700 jobs. This was great news.
Could I turn to this sheet first, please? It's the Contracts of Employment Act 1965, the Terms and Conditions of Employment.
The subsidies were arranged in such a way that the more people you employed, the more money you got. And therefore he was always trying to bolster the business generally by employing more people.
On behalf of the people of Northern Ireland, I'd like to thank you for the employment you've given. I think it's magnificent effort, and the best of luck.
I didn't think he was ever to be trusted, because I just looked at him and thought, well, I don't know. I just wonder what you're doing in Northern Ireland.
Well, I've got a pint of blood for every pound that the British have in it, so I don't know. I think we're all about even there.
We're bringing on new people at such a rate, and I'm talking about sometimes 200 a week. It's just impossible to do. Like, I remember standing with George Broomfield one day in the assembly, and this guy came over to us and he says, "Excuse me, sir, could you tell me where the trim line is?" And George says, "Well, you need to see the supervisor." And he says, "Excuse me, sir, I am the supervisor." This guy was the supervisor, had never seen where he was going to work before.